is from her in terms of the contrast he can provide, sources said. A fifth source close to the process puts it like this, quote, "Is this someone who you would want to have lunch with every week for 4 years?" But Harris's decision today goes beyond just finding a trusted partner in Walz. The governor's devastating takedown of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance as being plain old weird has gained serious traction in the party over the last few weeks. Watch.
These are weird people on the other side. They want to take books away. They want to be in your exam room. These are weird ideas. Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter and shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind. And I thought we just give him way too much credit. And I think one of the things is when you just ratchet down some of the, the scariness or whatever and just name it what it is. I got to tell you, Jake, my observation on this is, have you ever seen the guy laugh? That seems very weird to me that an adult can go through 6.5 years of being in the public eye. If he has laughed, it's at someone, not with someone. That is weird behavior. And I don't think you call it anything else. They're awkward. And it stems from who's asking for this crazy stuff? Who's asking to raise the price of insulin? Who's asking to get rid of birth control? Who's sitting in a bar in Racine, Wisconsin saying, we really need to ban Animal Farm? Nobody is.
Walz's role as a super effective messenger for Democrats is backed up by a very long resume that many hope will help the ticket appeal to a wide swath of voters. He's a veteran, he's a gun owner, a plain-spoken former high school teacher who spent years in Congress representing a rural district that went for Donald Trump in 2016. Who, as governor, passed a slew of top Democratic priorities, things like paid family leave, background checks for gun owners, and enshrining the right to an abortion in the state constitution. In the next hour, Walz and Harris will appear for the first time together as a ticket at a rally in Philadelphia. We'll bring it to you live as soon as it happens. NBC News correspondent Yamiche Alcindor is in Philadelphia for us ahead of tonight's rally. Also joining us, former U.S. Senator and co-host of MSNBC's How to Win 2024 podcast, Claire McCaskill's here with us at the table, Democratic strategist, professor at Columbia University, MSNBC political analyst Basil Smikle's here, plus chief political columnist, host of the podcast In Politics for Puck, MSNBC national affairs analyst John Heilman. I know all of you are brimming with reporting on how this came to be and what happens next. I start with you and yours, Yamiche.
Well, I wanted to start by telling you about sort of the reporting that I've been doing on how we came to the decision, that Tim Walz is now the running mate that Vice President Harris has settled on. And it was that on Sunday, she had 3 finalists. It was Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, Josh Shapiro, the governor of the state that I'm standing in, Pennsylvania, and Tim Walz, who was, of course, the governor of Minnesota. When you start with Mark Kelly, I was told that he was someone who was seen as not supportive enough of President Biden in the weeks when people were trying to push him out of the election, trying to get him to drop out, that Mark Kelly was sort of neutral, and that was seen as not loyal enough. It was also brought up to me that he was not seen as loyal enough when it came to immigration policy, and that overall in the Biden administration, he's not seen as somebody, as a senator who was helpful in passing the legislation that they wanted to pass. Then you get to Josh Shapiro. There were conversations about whether or not his stance when it comes to the war between Israel and Hamas might anger protesters even more than they already are. This issue did not sink him, I was told, but it was a conversation around whether or not him giving a speech at the DNC as the running mate, whether or not that would really anger the base of the party. And then you get to Tim Walz. I was told that this was really a gut decision, that she's had a conversation with him, felt the chemistry, and that she ultimately settled on the fact that he is somebody that she could trust, not just as a campaign running mate, but as someone, if she is to govern with him, if there's a sort of difference between the vice president, if there's a Vice President Walz and a President Harris, that he would be someone who wouldn't be leaking to the press. He wouldn't be someone who would be complaining to staff. That whatever the decision was, that he would be able and feel comfortable being led by a woman, a Black and South Asian woman, as president if they were to make it to the White House. So there was really a lot of going on here. And the thing that one source told me was this was kind of like picking a husband. None of them are perfect, but this was someone that she felt was the best of that. And I will say, I have to note, my husband is perfect. He's an Eagles fan. But in this instance, that's what they were thinking.
I'm going to stay far away from the husband stuff. Claire McCaskill, I know you've been talking to folks as well. What do you understand about how this decision, which it is stunning that in the seconds after it was announced, you had Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Joe Manchin heaping praise upon Vice President Harris's pick of Tim Walz.
Well, I can say with a great deal of confidence, I think this did boil down to just a couple of things. Number one being, is this going to be the kind of communicator and partner that can hang out with her for a long time in a lot of stressful situations, be supportive, be strong, be persuasive? And I think everybody needs to remember, I mean, honestly, Nicolle, his people called us to be on our podcast a few weeks ago, and I kind of was dismissive of it. I wasn't that familiar with Tim Walz, and I kind of thought, God, the guy's kind of thirsty. He's, popping up now and immediately when this talk of who the vice president's going to be to get on this podcast. But I got to tell you, that podcast converted me. He is so real, so genuine, speaks so plainly. He screams anti-elite. He screams, I am not an Ivy Leaguer. He screams mac and cheese and a trip to the hardware store. I can't imagine him ever walking in a room where he saw anybody as a stranger. I think the reason all those children were hugging him is because he gives you that impression that he wants to be hugged. He's a huggable guy. And I think it was that chemistry that really made the difference. And the other thing I really think made a difference was the difference in their resumes. Josh Shapiro's resume is not that different than Kamala Harris's. Prosecutor, AG, then governor, prosecutor, AG, then senator, whereas Tim Walz brings a lot more to the table. Football coach, and I might add, he was the coach of the football team, the defensive coordinator, the year they won the state championship. In that same year, he volunteered to be the faculty advisor for a group of kids that wanted to form a club that was called the Alliance Between Gay and Straight Kids. So, I mean, that's stuff that is really good stuff. And his resume was different. And I think in the long run, she saw that as something that would help the campaign more than a resume that was very similar to hers.
I love all this. I too did a deep dive today, and these are some of my favorite things that he said, John Heilman. This is him explaining the weird label, which stuck like crazy glue onto the Trump-Vance ticket. This is Governor Walz on the podcast Pod Save America.
This weird thing is not an insult. It's an observation. And people saying, well, Governor Walz came up with this. No, people are telling me this. My Republican friends are telling me this. Because when you look at it this way, who's asking for some of this stuff? Who's asking for health care to be taken away? Who's asking for birth control to be taken away? Who's asking? You picture some guys, they always do the guy's sitting in Racine, Wisconsin in the bar, what's really concerning them? I damn sure guarantee you it's not banning Animal Farm. They're talking about, God, it's too damn expensive to pay for child care, or I'd like to do this. So I think the thing is that this spell, and you listen to him, there's nothing there. And it opens up a huge space if you can shrink the message, and then really start to focus on it. I want people to be very clear. I'm not talking about Republicans being weird. I'm talking about that dude. Just my point on this, he's making fun of Kamala Harris laughing. I got a bet out there, and he'll never collect on it. He will not laugh in public. He's incapable of it. And that's just strange.
I think people were hungry to see Trump brought down to size. I think we, and I mean the collective we, right? The pro-democracy coalition, which is the Democratic Party and all the stray cats and dogs like myself who have clung onto it in hopes of Trump not serving a second term, have in our fear of what he's saying out loud, which is certainly legitimate. It is the Project 2025 agenda. It is turning DOJ into a personal political police force. It is taking the Supreme Court's newfound total immunity for official acts and doing unthinkable things. I mean, since that decision, no one has talked about what Joe Biden or potential President Kamala Harris would do with absolute immunity. No one. Everyone. Single story, not in this news organization, not at Fox News. No one's worried about what Joe Biden would do with absolute immunity. It's what Trump would do because of what Trump tried to do in his first presidency. But Walz has a totally different frame around Trump. And it's to, in his words, quote, shrink him. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think, you have to, anybody who wonders whether this guy is going to be a good candidate on the national stage, he's just run a campaign. I mean, he ran a campaign for this office, and I say that with admiration. Claire McCaskill just said, how many people do you think in Democratic politics Claire McCaskill would say, I've never really heard of that guy a couple weeks ago? And he has a very significant resume. We've seen it now, what his resume is, both in and out of government. Six-term member of the House, governor of Minnesota. I'm not demeaning it to say that he had not broken through. People knew who Josh Shapiro was. People knew who Andy Beshear was. People knew who a lot of these people on the short list were. He was 3 weeks ago unknown to all but maybe the top 0.1% of the political class. People had not, and he came out and did Claire McCaskill's podcast and Pod Save America. He came on this network a lot. He went on CNN. He went all over the place, and was campaigned as well for the job of vice president as Kamala Harris has campaigned so far for the job of president since she's been the nominee, flawlessly. So you have to give the guy some credit there. And I will say, that you can't take this out of the context in which it exists, which is the context of a Democratic Party that's just been through hell before Vice President Harris became the nominee. All drama, more drama than you would want, any party would want, in 6 election cycles. They had it in 6 weeks, right? Yeah. And you look across the aisle and you see J.D. Vance, not just as a target, but as a cautionary tale. You have been through this in politics, what it is to not pick a do no harm candidate, to pick a candidate who's a wild, bold pick. It turns out that sometimes doesn't work out so well for you. And so in this moment, when Democrats they want a no drama pick. They did not want some outside the box thinking here. We're pretty far outside the box already in terms of how Kamala Harris became the nominee. They wanted they wanted a unity candidate that all wings of the party could agree on. She met that. That's going to keep the enthusiasm high. They understand how important that is. There's not going to, any chance there's going to be any upheaval in Chicago, now gone. Love fest guaranteed. And they know they can't, in 91 days, they don't have much time, right? And to win this election, you have a very short number of news cycles. You got to keep winning news cycles, and you have to keep doing a lot of other things. But you can't have some giant screw up that consumes 10 days of your campaign, because you'll never recover from that. This guarantees that she will not have that. In addition to all of the vernacular you're talking about, where this guy does not read like the Squad. He may be progressive, but he doesn't read like far left. What he reads as is, he reads this as what Claire said, he reads as a Rotarian, and a funny Rotarian. In fact, guy you really want to have a guy you really would be really happy to have a cheeseburger with, because he has some really funny things to say about that weirdo Donald Trump.
Funny and accurate. I also think he's
Funny things usually are accurate.
Yeah, that's true.
That's like the truth.
Oh my God, we have to get to the comedian. I think it was the Comedians for Harris call where it's not in this block, but stick a pin in that. We're going to get to funny. I want to get to his unapologetic defense of his record. This is an interview with Jake Tapper.
Do you think your record is an asset to the ticket, or would it risk fueling Trump's attacks as you being a big government liberal?
What a monster. Kids are eating and having full bellies so they can go learn, and women are making their own health care decisions. And we're a top 5 business state, and we also rank in the top 3 of happiness. Look, they're going to label whatever they're going to label. He's going to roll it out, mispronounce names, to try and make the case. The fact of the matter is, where you see the policies that Vice President Harris was a part of making, Democratic governors across the country executed those policies, and quality of life is higher, the economies are better, all of those things. Educational attainment is better. So, yeah, my kids are going to eat here, and you're going to have a chance to go to college, and you're going to have an opportunity to live where we're working on reducing carbon